Welcome back to One Bills Live. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you here at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Pleased to be joined by Bills head coach Sean McDermott. Busy week, just getting started here, Coach. How you doing? You doing okay?
Yeah, we're doing well. Doing well. How are you?
Doing well. Obviously, there was some news on the coaching front, so maybe just lay out for us how you guys kind of came to the decision with Coach Frazier.
Well, it was a decision that was brought upon by Leslie, and he wants to take a year off, and so he's done a really good job with our defense, and the seasons get long, and they get long, and as you guys know, as a player and as a coach, I mean they're not easy, and for anyone, staff included. So. This is something that he wants to do, and we support him through it.
What does that mean, with he leaves behind? Certainly a great staff there now in place. How do you share that role or fill that role going forward? I know it's early, but I don't know.
Yeah, it is early. So we're going to continue to evaluate it. We've started to do that. Feel very confident about the coaches we have in-house. We've added to that group this offseason with Al Holcomb and Joe Dana, and feel good about those two as well. So very confident in the group we have in-house, and we'll evaluate one day at a time as we move forward here.
Right.
On the offensive side of the ball, you also added Adam Henry as a receivers coach. He's got experience both at the pro level and the college level. I'm just kind of curious, what was so attractive to you about his skill set? Most of the coaches that we've hired, I've been around maybe in some capacity before. In this case, I haven't been around Adam before, and so what I was pleased to see as we did our research was how he's worked with the top shelf receivers, but he's also worked and developed some of the lesser known names, if you will, who have gone on to do good things. And so I think developing players is huge, and we've talked about that quite a bit, and he has a record of doing that. And he comes well recommended from both pro coaches as well as college coaches.
Yeah, and that's always been kind of the hallmark of your staff. You've gotten guys in here that and every rookie, every young player needs some development in some way, shape, or form. And certainly your young guys, even this last year with Christian Benford, Kyer Elam at the top of the list, along with Cook. And those guys, they need work when they come in. Shakir. It's been the hallmark of your staff to start those guys slow and bring them along. And then by the time they get to the field, they're really ready. In fact, you had the luxury because of your veterans to take it slower this year with your young players. Does that change does your philosophy there change, or how does that give us another insight as to your mindset about those young players and their development?
Well, it's got to be earned. I think regardless of where you are as a team, it has to be earned. We had a veteran team last season to some extent at most positions, maybe not all, and it's you're never going to have that at every position, but players have to earn everything they get, and that being said, there needs to be not only a development of young talent, but also these young players more and more playing early and us getting a feel for what they can do. And you see that we've done that before, but then you also see it throughout the league. Yeah. In particular with sometimes what situation a club may be in with salary cap or what have you, or injuries. So, I feel like coming out of the season, one of the positives was that some of our young players got quality time and they showed us what they could do, and now you can kind of lean on that. They can lean on that. The confidence that should come from that as they go into their offseason here.
Right. Coach, the defense ranked 7th in third down defense, top 10 ranking, good showing. There were a couple of downs and distances, though, that Steve and I were dicing up one day. 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, for example. Those two down distances combined against the pass, the conversion rate, at least from the league stats, by your opponents was right around 59%. I know that's not a number that's up to your standard. So I'm just kind of curious, and you don't have to get into the nuts and bolts of the process, but how you kind of dive into that with your coaching staff and say, how do we make this figure far lower next season? Is it scheme-oriented or is it more personnel. I'm just kind of curious how that gets all diced up to make it better next year.
Well, when you evaluate, usually there's two branches of it or two legs. You say, hey, how much of it is scheme, how much of it is player, and you try and look at it objectively and say, what can we do better schematically, and then do we have the right players? And I would say that it's never just one or the other.
Right.
It's usually a combination, and so feel good about our players. Do we need to improve in some of those areas? Yes, no doubt about it. And I know Brandon and his staff work hard at that as well. And schematically, a year ago, I believe we were the top defense
Number
on
one.
third down. But you dive back in every offseason and you start from the ground and work your way up. And third down, anytime you can get a team into third down, that's a good thing.
Yes.
Now, you'd love it to be 3rd and 7+, but even there, we weren't great this year, 3rd and 11+. So just you got to start over and find out the what, the why, and the how, and come back this year with a better approach.
So you get in there in your roster, you got all these guys that are free agents. You got 22 unrestricted free agents, a couple restricted free agents. It's a lot of turnover. And we went back and looked. It's not all that different from where you were a year ago. You still had, they had those guys. You had about that many guys that you maybe anticipated going to be that much of a turnover this last year. Right. You end up going 13-3. You have a really nice regular season. All of that stuff going on. So here we are again, and you're at the draft, and so how do you get your mind around? And this is what I guess a head coach is all about. You got to build a team from scratch just like you said. You got to go back and dive in. Is that like the good part about it, or is that the tedious part about it? Because you just get this team humming along, and now you got to you
carry a piano up the flight of stairs again.
Yeah. You got to tear it down to the studs again.
Right. No, I think that's the, not to interrupt, Steve, but I think that's the exciting part about it is, the game changes a little bit every year, and you have to change with it. You've got to evolve and be cutting edge and do the research necessary to be cutting edge, offensively, defensively, and special teams. And that's, to me, the cool part about our profession is if you don't continue to evolve, you're not going to be able to sustain the success that we've been successful doing. And then the personnel side is we're out here in Indy with the draft prospects and the free agency that's coming. That's around the corner for us. I think that's just, you build your team every year. The culture and some of your core values may not change necessarily, but the people certainly change to some extent. And then how you do things, you're always looking for different ways to do things and grow and evolve. And listen, we came up short. Even though we were 13-3 and had a great season, we came up short in terms of accomplishing our ultimate goal. But we try and be forward-looking and thinking, and I think that's key in this situation.
Third year, just getting back a little bit to player development. You've got third-year players over the course of your tenure here in Buffalo that have really kind of taken off in year 3. Dawson Knox is an example. Taron Johnson in his third year really kind of took off on a high ascending trajectory. You've got Spencer Brown and Greg Rousseau, probably 2 of your more prominent third-year players coming into this year. What is it about the third season where players just kind of take off the runway and they're going? I don't know what. Maybe you can shed some light on why it seems to be year 3 that seems to be so profitable for players here.
Yeah, I think, Chris, it really comes back to time. It used to be under the old rules that we had more time with the players, both for sure in the off season.
Yeah.
And now that time has been greatly reduced. So time on task, like anything, comes into play. So that it used to be year 2 was the litmus test of can the player do X, Y, and Z, and now it's, hey, we need to give them until year 3 to really see who they are as a player.
Okay.
And so I think that works, and that's why we're seeing that trend develop.
Okay, so you come into this week and you don't really know where your roster is going to be in a month and a half when this draft happens, or 2 months when this draft happens, because there's free agency is going to happen. You got some restructures, you got to get your financials in order. All this stuff's got to happen before you really draft these guys. So really, you want to get in the spot where the best guy is the guy you get, right? Hopefully. The best guy on the board is going to be the best pro is the one you want to be able to take. So if that's the case, what is your mindset going in? Because you may be talking to, defensive end or offensive guard, offensive tackle, running back. You never know where that guy might turn up. So what is your philosophy about when you sit down with these guys in these interviews, which are so important?
I think and again, going back to the question about building a team every year, I think what you're looking for, and it may stay the same, and some of it changes just a little bit based on who you have around that vacant spot, so to speak, or that need. And so you're looking out there I don't want to show our hand in terms of what we value, but you're looking for football players at the end of the day. This is the game of football. It's not track. And so we're looking for the best football players that we can find at every position, and players that typically possess really good instincts, because there's a lot out there that you try and coach, but there's also a lot that they're going to have to fill the gaps on some things from time to time, on some unseen or unscouted looks. And so football instincts are a big part of it.
Right.
Your offense was highly efficient at the start of the year. Then there were some giant plays happening in the passing game in Week 5 against the Steelers, balls flying all over the place. And then it seemed like in the second half of the season, being that efficient on offense seemed to be a heavier lift. And then we saw, and I know you guys like to stay on top of trends or ahead of them if possible, we saw a lot of the AFC teams choose efficiency to stay on the field, finish drives, go shorter passing. I'm not going to ask you what you think is the best course of action for you guys, but how do you come around to making a decision like, we should do that too, or no, we're going to pivot and we're going to do this instead?
Yeah. Well, it's the research, it's where the game is and how it's evolving. And, listen, we did a lot of good things on offense last year. That said, there certainly is room for us to adjust and make improvements, and we have to be open to doing that and then do our work around that. We have, the one thing we know is we have a franchise quarterback, and there's not every team can say that and answer that question affirmatively with a yes, and we do. And when you can lead the league in third downs and 2-minute, and how Josh led the league in terms of extending plays and the efficiency around that when he extended the plays, those are really good areas. There's a lot of people that cannot answer yes to those areas. But there are other areas that we need to round out, if you will, for us to become the football team that we're trying to become. And I'm confident in Coach Dorsey and our offensive staff, extremely confident in them, in fact, that we will do that this year.
Coach, thanks. I appreciate it. Have a great week, and appreciate you coming by.
Great to see you guys. Thanks for having me.